Hello there, gentle children. This is Shawn Harwell. You are listening to the Never Heard of It podcast, and we're back in the time machine today to go to 1985, and I wouldn't be going alone, obviously, because that'd be crazy. So I'm joined today, as always, by the one, the only, the open-shirted and mulleted, weird gun holster, shoulder-wearing guy himself.
Craig Tex Moorhead.
Tex, I like it. It's a good middle nickname for you.
One I've always wanted to give myself, and no one ever would call me that. So,
well, we're not in Texas, and you're not from Texas, so it does seem a little...
No connections. I'm not really tough. So, I don't know. Text might be a better middle nickname, but yeah. Craig Tex Moorhead.
Moorhead? Okay.
It's a little more on target. Yeah.
Well, that's very good.
But yeah, so this is the Never Heard of It podcast. We talk about the movies that have fallen through our cracks. And if you would like to find more out about us, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at Never Podcast. You can find us at neverpodcast.com. Even on Instagram, you can find us at NHOIT Podcast, I believe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, come and talk to us. Let us know how you're feeling about these episodes. If you like them right now, we're smack dab in the middle of talking about movies from 1985. We've already talked about Explorers and Daryl and The Goonies. And we talked about Rambo 2 and Missing in Action 2, The Beginning. I'm sorry, Rambo First Blood Part 2. Where's my head?
I don't know why you would get any of that confused, Craig.
I know.
Straightforward.
But we're gonna just be plowing through the movies of 1985 and trying to figure out what's up. And so today we're talking about Invasion USA and Commando, two towering achievements of 1985 action. But all four of these movies that we've watched now have really opened my eyes to how ridiculous these movies must have looked to certain people.
Yep.
I'm guessing maybe older people, but I just when I was a kid, it just seemed like, yes, this is probably how the world works. And then watching it now, this is the most ridiculous stuff I feel like I've ever seen. Shawn, how familiar were you with these two movies? And I don't know, what were your impressions?
Well, we got into this just a little bit last time, but that was definitely trivia, fact-centered episode. If you haven't heard the tee-up one yet, go back and check that out. And it might work well if you've seen the movies or you hear us talk about it, so then go back and listen to all the juicy details from these two, because there's some great stuff. But yeah, been a long time since I'd seen Commando. Pretty much 100% positive I've never seen Invasion USA. Nothing about it struck out to me as familiar. But on the whole, yeah, it's ridiculous, but these two, I think, surprised me by how entertaining they were. And I shouldn't say that this was going to be a surprise for everyone, because clearly these movies have their legions of fans. But I think I kind of came into it as it's sort of so bad they're good fans. And I don't know, I've never gravitated towards that stuff. Even as we've talked about with this podcast, we're not just picking things that we suspect are going to be terrible just to riff on. Right. And, I kind of thought, okay, well, these two movies, they might fall into that category and just be borderline nonsensical and awful. And they there's elements that are, but on the whole, I was entertained pretty much from start to finish for both of them. I think one definitely has more wit to it, which I think it helps, actually. I mean, I think it's fun to look at it and think, okay, well, there's parts of it that are super serious, but parts that aren't. I'm talking about Commando. And the other one is just so over the top brutal that I found myself laughing at just oh my God, what did I just watch? and that's Invasion USA. And yeah, I think, I don't know, man. I think these two, in some ways, top Rambo and Missing in Action 2. We'll get to that. But yeah, just a real pleasure. They're both short. I think they move at a good clip. And we'll get into more specifics. But yeah, what did you think? You know, rewatching Commando, I know you said it was always a favorite of yours in some regards. And you weren't familiar with Invasion USA. So watching them in close pairing here, what'd you think?
Very much the same. I came away from it, and I'm looking forward to talking about them to figure out if what I'm thinking is true. I feel like a part of the reason they were so fun to watch is, especially Invasion USA really takes itself super seriously, as you were saying. Commando takes itself a little less seriously, maybe a lot less seriously, but
well, it's a mix, I think, you know.
Yeah. Neither one of them, in the storytelling, there's a certain point in both of them, and the points are pretty early on, where, for me at least, I realized there really are no stakes. You're watching this movie to see this guy and this guy win the day. Yeah. Just beat everybody, because he doesn't really have to work at it that hard. Like, Arnold kind of worked at it a little harder, I feel like.
For sure.
Chuck was like a ghost.
Yep.
Like, that dude just showed up wherever bad stuff was going down. We have a lot to talk about in that one.
We do.
But I feel like that was a part of what was fun. Like, there was never a point where, although it does heavily deal in bloody murder,
oh, God.
It certainly never made me think about the actual prospects of actual death or any existential questions at all. Right? It kept far away from that. It was just, we're having fun. Like, keep watching me. This is great. And it was fun. So I very much the same thing. I thought Invasion USA would be a horrible chore to sit through. That's what I was really worried about. And it's not at all. Like, it never bored me. Like, maybe the story could have been better in the character work or whatever. The plots could have been a little better, but I mean, it felt like a movie that they were like, is that part boring? Just cut it out.
Actually, I told my wife, I was like, that's it. That's the movie where the legend of Chuck Norris, I think, it came to its fullest capacity. I mean, I have to imagine. I haven't seen all of them. But good God, I don't know how you top some of the stuff in that. And yeah, it's a blast. I mean, to me, in some ways, it's the surprise of the four. Although, you know, definitely was surprised by Missing in Action as well. But I want to go back to the stakes thing. And this is a good segue, actually. I'll give the synopsis for Commando. And maybe we'll spend a little bit of time with that one first. Because, you know, it did significantly better than the other one. And I think... I think the mystique around it is maybe a little larger, looms larger in pop culture probably. Mm-hmm. So here, Commando, IMDb. And the nice thing about the synopsises with these two movies is that's really kind of all you need to know. You maybe don't even need to know this. You can look at the poster and go, okay, that's all I need to know. So here we go. A retired elite black ops commando launches a one-man war against a group of South American criminals who have kidnapped his daughter. Now, I do think what's interesting here in relation to what you were saying, because when you first said, you know, there's basically no stakes. And I was like, well, his daughter was kidnapped. But then I thought immediately, yeah, but they could have killed her at any point. You know, I mean, they really could have. And
they kept talking about doing it.
Oh, boy, they talk about it a lot. You know, and there is a bit of a ticking clock, which aids in that factor. And then, I mean, we'll get to this, but obviously if you've seen it, you know, There's a really clear opportunity for one character in particular, the character of Bennett, to kill Mr. Commando, and he does not take that opportunity. So yeah, I mean, when things like that happen, you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, it's not really about. Yeah, I want him to get his daughter back. It'll be great. I like Alyssa Milano. But, you know, it's not. You know, I was thinking too about in regards to say 2017 or what they would do with something like this now. And I think you're right. I feel like they would, even just having the daughter be kidnapped, it would be so much darker, I think, and
Sure.
so much more. It's like I thought of something like Taken, where the daughter's like kidnapped and I think she's like put into sexual slavery, basically, and it just
Right.
gets somehow there's like 12 layers of darkness on top of that. While I did like that movie and I think it's fun, in a similar way, it's nothing like this. I mean, nothing like Commando. And I think when you talk Commando, you got to start at the beginning because of the ridiculousness of the setup with this guy and his daughter. But it does sort of play into, I mean, that's the whole point of the movie, is like him getting his daughter back, And I was sitting here watching this, and like, if you don't know, just go find it on YouTube. I promise you it's out there. It is like, I meant to do this, but I feel like if we watched the like theme song sequence in Who's the Boss, the TV show, it probably wouldn't look that different from this sequence in Commando. Because
it's like incredible.
Yeah, I mean, they're sharing ice cream cones. It's a Schwarzenegger and Alyssa Milano. I mean, it's just as ridiculous. They're feeding a deer. They are feeding a deer out of their hand.
They're feeding a deer, and it's not even like it doesn't feel like anything that would be natural. Like, it feels like there were 13 people there that posed everybody.
Oh yeah,
and they sat back, because I mean, nothing about that looks like any natural positions that you would just be in feeding a deer. Yeah. I mean, it's, again, we kind of come back to the parody thing. Like, you see where this earnestness became parody, and then a part of me was wondering, what was this parody? Like, I mean, it's not really that kind of movie, but some parts of the movie know how ridiculous the movie is. And others don't seem to. But I mean, like when she dabs his nose with the ice cream cone and he just starts laughing. Like, holy cow. But you know what's so great, though, is still, I just thinking about the thing you pointed out last time about how he was taking voice lessons to learn how to control his voice better, to be a better performer for this movie. And it's just like, I just feel like even when he's doing something like that and it kind of comes off ridiculous, I just feel like he's trying so hard.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a robot anymore, guys.
No.
Like, he's coming out swinging. Yeah. So,
I mean, and I don't know if it's parody or if it's that sort of self-referential, but I do think they understand that there is some fun to be had by having that sequence immediately trail. It does open with a sort of like cold open on Bill Duke, and there's bad guys, and they shoot this guy pretending to be they're pretending to be garbage men, and they roll up in the truck and shoot a guy, and he steals a car, and there's Uzis, of course, which God almighty are there Uzis. And remote control explosives. We get some of those in the opening 5 minutes. But your first shot of Arnold is like, basically he's chopped down a tree with a chainsaw, and he's carrying it on his shoulder.
That's
and
right.
The chainsaw's in one hand, and then he's like getting ready to chop wood, and I mean, there's literally an extreme close up on one of his biceps. So you're taking that image though, and then immediately pairing it with this ridiculously cheesy sequence that ends with him like literally kissing his daughter on the lips, which I'm just like, come on. I mean, it's like innocent enough, but it's like, you couldn't just like peck her on the cheek, like, why?
Yeah.
And all the time I'm also thinking, like, his name is John Matrix, so here's sweet little Jenny Matrix, which is just ridiculous. But
well, and the other thing I thought about was it's great. I mean, it sets the right tone, but I feel like, and maybe Taken did this exact thing, and maybe I'm just aping that, but it made me think about, if this movie was being made right now, that opening would have been more about this guy and his teenage daughter and the problems that they kind of have together.
Yes,
and it'd be the kind of thing where you'd totally see that they do love each other, but right now they just kind of hate each other, and then she's going to get kidnapped.
Yeah.
And then he's got this, thing where he's like, oh, she hates me, I can't, I got to save her, I don't know. It feels like it would be a lot more fraught. Whereas in this case, like, they are the perfect father-daughter team. Did they ever mention what happened to the wife?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
I just assume he killed her with a chainsaw and carried her over his shoulder.
And fed her to deer, probably. It's probably what we were watching. Jesus, those cold bastards.
I don't know. I mean, I do, This is a movie that they could have totally done the missing in action thing, and the sequel could have been actually a prequel, because I do feel like there's a lot of story to be had there. What's not mentioned in this synopsis is that, these South American criminals are actually killing off some of his fellow black ops soldiers. And, the general who comes to tell him that, which is General Kirby, I think, or Colonel Kirby, or whatever the hell his name was, basically leads them inadvertently. He doesn't mean to, but leads the bad guys to the house in the middle of the mountains. And that's where they take little Jenny away. So, yeah, there's a lot of right backstory there that we're not that privy to. But it does just, I don't know, it just kind of adds to the interest of this weird relationship between this guy and his daughter and the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, as long as we're talking about that, how Kirby kind of led the bad guys to our commando hero. Mm-hmm. This was my first tip off that there were really no stakes in the movie. Yeah. Because despite the fact that there are two armed guards who are described at least as being very good.
Yeah.
Arnold figures out that there's someone in the bushes with a gun about to shoot them with literally no evidence of any kind. He's later, I think he says he smelled somebody. And I was just like, no, he didn't smell anybody.
Dude, come on, look how big his nostrils are.
Yeah, I just felt like if you can smell him, there's no one in this movie who's going to beat you. Certainly Dan Hedaya, as much as I love the guy, is not going to destroy you.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And that happened immediately after it's actually General Kirby left. I mean, within seconds. Yeah.
Right. There's no time wasted. Shit, there's like no fat whatsoever.
Nope. And that's actually one thing that I really liked about the movie. I mean, and I noticed it. Especially by, an hour into this thing, I'm like, man, the pace of this is just moving, and it works, because of that. So there's some great stuff there when Arnold is basically fighting off, the rest of the guys that are with this crew that have taken his daughter. And this is sort of, I think, our introduction to, as we mentioned last time, I think it was IFC.com cataloged like the 10 best one-liners from this movie that prove that it is the ultimate Arnold movie. And, one of my favorite kind of happens early on, they kidnap the daughter, and I think Arnold's killed maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4. I mean, the body count in this thing is out of control, and it's impossible to keep up. He kills a number of these guys at his house, but there's one dude who's just sitting in a chair with a gun propped up, and he's basically laying out like, blah, 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 blah. We took your kid. Here's what's going to happen. And he says, if you want your kid back, then you got to cooperate, right? And Arnold, I can't remember if he shoots him then and says wrong, or if he just says wrong and shoots him in the head. I was like, okay, yep, that's what we're in for here. This is the moment for that guy, and man, they take good use of that, I guess. And really loved absolutely everything about him driving his Ford Bronco down the side of a mountain with no brakes. Oh, I mean, that thing bounces around. I mean, we talked about there's like 50 some stunt performers listed in the credits here, and boy, they earn their money in a lot of cases.
They burn through like 10 just putting one person in that thing, and then
probably, yeah. It looks
scraping
like
him off the inside and put another one in there.
Yeah, and I love too that you get that sort of you break POV a little bit to get inside of the car that I think Bill Duke is in, and the other guys is like, oh shit, he's coming after, he's gonna hit us, because clearly they just were not expecting. It's like, we cut the guy's brakes, like he's not gonna go down the mountain, or even if we didn't cut his brakes, he wouldn't just drive down the side of a mountain to come get his daughter, right? But nope, he does. And then classic car explosion. I think it exploded about 3 times when it flipped over. It was 3 or 4. But a lot. It seemed like maybe an absurd amount of explosions for one car. I don't know.
I don't know much about cars. I have no idea how many gas tanks are on a car, but it seemed like that one had a few.
Now, here's something, Craig. I was caught off, well, I don't know. Caught off guard is maybe the wrong way to put it. But we get an "I'll be back" in this movie from Arnold in regards to Bennett, the character played by Vernon Wells. And is that something that you remembered?
Yeah, but I have to say, like, I feel like after the Terminator, I just assume that he definitely says that in every one of his movies.
I did not. I don't know. I thought that.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting it in this one, I guess. And you know, he does say "I'll be back, Bennett," and it's not like he doesn't do it the same way he does it as the Terminator.
No.
But that said,
it still gooses everybody in the audience.
Yeah, and that again, I was just like, okay, yeah, this is. They're at least using wit, right? Whether this is, I don't want to say it's supposed to be campy. There's moments where it's obviously serious. And again, his daughter, Jenny Matrix, has been kidnapped.
Matrix.
Yeah, but they're playing on it. Now, the question is, Craig, like in Schwarzenegger's head in 1985, do you think he's like, oh man, this line is going to kill him? I'm going to say, "I'll be back" again. Or is he like, yeah, I don't know if I should say it again in this. Should we say it in this movie? Can we do a take where I don't say it? Can I say something else? And then we do a take where I do say it and you guys decide in editing? What do you think his mindset is?
I'd love to do the research on that. I kind of wish I had. I don't know what the deal is, but I always assumed that he's the one who said, you got to put my trademark in each one of these movies.
It might be.
After Terminator, because the Terminator moment is pretty memorable. That "I'll be back" is very memorable.
Sure.
So he'd kind of be a dope not to like. It's like, well, even if the rest of this movie is terrible, I'm still gonna say "I'll be back," and everybody will go nuts. But
I thought those catchphrases had to stay within their respective franchises. I wonder what James Cameron thought about like seeing, "Oh, Jesus, Arnold, you gonna say this in every?"
I feel like that's really where Arnold was a trailblazer.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Thank you.
Okay, so Arnold gets sent. Now, this is the part of the movie that, admittedly, didn't follow 100%. And I don't care. But Dan Hedaya is the leader of these South American criminals, right?
Yes.
His whole point in kidnapping Jenny Matrix is to get John Matrix to go back to this country. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it is back. Like, this is a place he has been before. And he helped, via the Black Ops, do some sort of revolution or fight. I can't remember. I mean, I don't know. Do you understand all of that? Basically, he's being sent to kill the president of this other country, but clearly,
yes, because that
like,
president knows him and trusts him.
Knows John Matrix and trusts him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But did Matrix know Dan Hedaya's character prior to? He did, right?
I did not know that. I was not clear on that. Okay. It honestly never even entered my mind. I just assumed the guy, like, obviously he knew Bennett, but I didn't think that he knew Dan Hedaya at all. No.
Okay. I thought there was something there, but well, it again doesn't matter. But I really like this whole sequence. So okay, so John Matrix, they got his daughter. Here's what's going to happen, and I liked actually that they were able to like subdue him and contain him at least briefly, and they're sending him on a plane. 2 guys are going to go with him to the airport. 1 guy's going to stay in the airport and watch him get on the plane, watch the plane take off. The other guy's sitting beside him on the seat when he gets to this country and gets off and does the deed. There's other messengers there. He'll get the message, don't kill the daughter yet, don't kill the daughter yet. He's still doing the mission. Who is that Sully guy? David Patrick Kelly.
Love that guy.
Yeah, I mean, how would you describe the suit that he is wearing in this movie?
I can describe it with just 4 numbers, Shawn. 1985.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it's like some weird baggy take on a zoot suit almost. But
Yeah.
he is like the smallest dude in the entire movie. He's like a little Weasley kind of guy. But I like that character. I thought he was fun. Now,
Yeah.
you get some other good stuff here when Schwarzenegger gets on the plane with this guy, and I think his name was Enrique or Enriquez or something like that. Big guy. I think he's taller than Schwarzenegger if I saw correctly.
Yeah. He seemed really big. Yeah.
A, they have first class tickets, because why not? B, are they like seated for 45 seconds before Enriquez is like flipping through a magazine? And then Schwarzenegger just elbows him in the face and then breaks his neck before they take off.
Yeah.
I thought for sure, and this was stupid of me because then it would be so much more difficult, that plane was going to at least get in the air, before he somehow got rid of this other guy. Nope.
Right.
They haven't even come close to taking off. Haven't even started moving yet. But then Schwarzenegger gets up and the flight attendant is like, "Sir, you need to stay seated, while we take off." And he's like, "I'm airsick," and goes in the back. And she says nothing else.
Yeah,
Man,
I love that.
How do you get airsick when you're not in the air?
You don't. I think it's one of the. I don't know if it was on your list of the greatest quotes of Commando or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's as deadpan as it gets, and he just ripped a guy's neck in half, and
and nobody noticed.
Now he's and I have to say, I'm in agreement with you. I love this sequence, and I love the fact that this whole ticking clock is set up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so great. It's very. It kind of has to happen back then because obviously now you could communicate with the ground, no problem.
Yep.
It's pretty smart. Like it's a lot of fun. And I also say, since we're talking about David Patrick Kelly, and even this fella, I believe his name is Charles Meshach, who was playing Enrique.
Okay.
But you also have, you have Bill Duke, you have Patrick Kelly. I just feel like the goons were really well cast.
Yeah.
Like Sully is kind of a nothing part. And if you didn't have somebody as strong as old DPK, like I don't know what that part would be. But like you totally remember this guy now. Like that guy is fantastic. So
there's just something so awkward and hilarious to me about the way, he ends up in the wheel well of the plane because that's what you do. You go in the bathroom and then you're or whatever, however he wound his way down into the cargo. I liked all that stuff. Plane's getting ready to take off. He jumps off, and just like the way he landed in this marsh was hysterical to me for some reason, because he pops up in a second, but it looked like he was falling from like 5 stories or something, in the air. But that I loved. And then, you had this nice little bit with David Patrick Kelly again, where I'm like, okay, am I even going to see this guy again for like the next hour or what? Like, is he just going to pop up in the end and get killed? But no, like he's harassing Radon Chong at a telephone booth in the airport, and Schwarzenegger is watching, and then, Radon Chong goes to her car after she's told him to leave him the hell alone, and David Patrick Kelly follows her. And that to me again was like, it would be not that great of a part with a lesser actor, but it's like, oh man, this dude is like, he's slimy. He's like worthy of having a character name in a movie like this, right? And that one thing leads to another. That he realizes that this girl is his ticket to follow Sully, which hopefully is going to lead him back to Dan Hedaya and his daughter. You take a detour to a shopping mall, the mall that we talked about in the Tee-Up episode, which I swear, I think that might be the same mall as the Fast Times at Ridgemont High mall.
I believe it is.
Looks very similar. Because Sully is doing some sort of shady deal there in a restaurant. Because this is, again, it's the 80s. You go to the mall to make your shady under the table handshake deals.
Oh yeah.
When you're doing illegal shit, right?
Although I gotta say, I kind of dig that.
It was great.
It wasn't like some like Roadhouse or something. It wasn't some like slimy
seedy
place.
bar.
Like you go to the mall.
Yeah. And like even like in the mall, like that restaurant is like a freaking nightclub. Like it's hopping,
Yeah. Yeah.
But finally, after the car ride, which all this stuff, okay, we've talked about this before. I think we've seen it in other movies where, a guy that a woman should never, ever just give the time of day to, especially if you're being basically taken hostage, the way Ray Don Chong is by Schwarzenegger. Mm. It's, they have this entire car ride, but it's not until they get to the mall that he tells her, look, my daughter was kidnapped. That guy is going to lead me to her. I need you to help me. Like, it feels like that maybe should have been the first thing he said, or it would go a long way towards putting her at ease, or at least letting her know that he's not going to kill her, Ray Don Chong.
Right. He
saves that till they get to the mall. And then, she goes into that restaurant and immediately tells the security guard, which I loved.
I love that.
I was like, well, that's, because I was thinking, I'm going to tell a cop. That's exactly what I would do. And it's great, too, that this just happens to be the mall that has the most security guards in the history of any mall.
Oh, man, they have a small army.
Yeah, but again, talking about, filling out that cast, I like the second guard you see who's gets the walkie-talkie call from the guy that Ray Don Chong talked to is he's just over talking to two hot girls and he's like, you guys want to see me kick some ass? And it's just this scrawny little dude. He's like the Don Knotts of the mall security guards there. And he even later on has a great line when he spots Schwarzenegger. It's like, oh my God, this is a huge motherfucker or something like that. And I love that. I mean, it just adds so much color, Yeah. I mean, when we talked about Rambo, which is such a different movie and so serious, but I don't know. I felt like this movie in particular did maybe the best job of fleshing out, or not fleshing out, but making these minor characters memorable. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, the world definitely feels filled out. And I was actually going to get, I don't want to skip over the mall sequence, but there was something that happens when he goes after Bill Duke at the hotel that I was going to talk about. So we can keep going with the mall for a little bit if you want to go with that.
Well, the only other thing that, God, there's so much in that mall that's great, but I loved that Sully sees Schwarzenegger, immediately is, beelining it to a phone booth, presumably to call his boss and let him know that Schwarzenegger is out there and not on a plane. And Schwarzenegger is trying to get to him. He's punching his way through the 800 security guards that work in the mall there. And Sully shoots a gun through the phone booth at him. But then, when Schwarzenegger is within, a foot and a half away, he doesn't shoot the gun again, I don't think, does he?
He did not shoot the gun again.
And I couldn't figure out for the life of me. I was like, well, you already did it once, right into a crowd of people, shoot
Yeah,
him.
what's stopping you now?
But if he had done that, we wouldn't be able to see Schwarzenegger lift the entire phone booth over his head and throw it on the ground. Which is why we bought a ticket, right? I loved all that. He gets away in his little yellow Porsche, Sully does, and then here is, oh gosh, I was about to say my biggest moment of disbelief with this movie, and then I realized, what am I talking about? That's even impossible to catalog here.
Yeah, I
but Schwarzenegger does chase after the yellow Porsche in Ray Don Chong's car. And after he gets out of the parking garage, he's racing down the street. And here comes Ray Don Chong running out of the mall, waving him down to stop. And I cannot think of a circumstance where anybody would do that and get back in a car with that guy. Right?
Can't imagine. No. Even if she suddenly believed
his story,
in his cause,
he's
got a guy that she doesn't know, well, she, doesn't really know, who's shooting a gun at him.
Yeah.
And they're about to start a car chase. So why would you want to get in that car?
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the answer.
You could just be a character witness later on, you could just hang back.
Or go to the cops and say, hey, this guy told me that his daughter was kidnapped. I think actually he's a good guy here. Let's maybe help him out. But again, if they did that, then we would be denied. We
lost a lot of good moments. Yeah.
The great car chase that ends with Schwarzenegger ramming that car into a telephone pole and immediately turning to her and like placing his hands on her. Are you all right? I mean, just like the way he does that, like the body language, it's so, I want to say parental, and yet it's not. It's just weird because like he's like, are you all right? And she says something, and then he's like, boom, out of the car, and immediately like back to the mission at hand, which is to take care of Sully. And another, gosh, I don't remember it. What was the great one-liner where he holds Sully up by his leg over the cliff of Mulholland Drive, I think.
I feel like this is the best known Commando line. She's holding him there. He says, you remember when I said I would kill you last? And Sully's like, yeah, you did say that. And he said, I lied.
I lied.
And then just straight up drops him. And here's the thing that was a little confusing to me. I didn't really have a good spatial awareness of what was going on there exactly.
Yeah.
But he drops this guy off the cliff. I mean, nobody else is up there. It's the three of them. Mm-hmm. Drops the guy off the cliff, comes back, and she's like, oh, so what happened to him? And I was just like, did you not just see what happened to him?
Yeah.
How did you miss any of what just happened? Because you just murdered that dude.
But then he gets to say, I let him go. So again,
exactly.
It's like, you're going to like roll with this if, and she maybe was, as we come to find out later on, she wants to be a pilot. She reads instruction manuals. Maybe she just found something interesting to read while he was doing that.
That's true.
So, I don't know.
That could be. Could be.
But yeah, I think it's around this time because probably just due to the fact that there's so much chasing sequences through this, that I really start to notice I don't like the score to this movie. Did you pick up on the fact that there's like steel drums in part of
there's
that?
A lot of steel drums.
Why on earth are there steel drums in the score for this movie?
I just kind of assumed because they're going to end up in Valverde.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole steel drum thing comes from. But yeah, I mean, I really don't understand the steel drums.
And it just doesn't jibe. I mean, because it is sort of like this, like, really up-tempo, action-y kind of score, but with the weird steel drums. So I don't know. It didn't quite gel.
There's no saxophone. So, I mean...
No, yeah. They didn't play all the 85 tropes. But yeah, this is, I think, when he finds out where Sully was headed, which I think came courtesy, like he looked at the keychain or something, right? In Sully's car. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I don't know. Leads him to this motel. And I'll let you take it away here because, there's a great fight in that scene and like how they staged all it. But what was the thing that kind of jumped out to you about this scene?
Well, yeah, so they go back to this thing and they're searching through this room trying to figure out, where his daughter is, where they've taken his daughter. And Bill Duke comes in. And exactly, I mean, Bill Duke's a big dude.
He's imposing.
He and Arnold have a showdown. They start throwing each other around. Bill Duke pulls a gun. And Arnold's still just fist fighting him and puts Bill Duke through a door. Door goes crashing down. On the other side, there's a guy videotaping himself and his woman
Love it.
going to town. So they both just jump up. They're both naked as they can be, screaming, which is first of all a fantastic 80s trope.
Yeah.
Just the real gratuitous nudity that has zero bearing on anything. But this is another thing where you're kind of talking about how the world feels fleshed out, no pun intended, or maybe so. But it just feels like in another movie, they would have fought in a hotel room and that would have been it. And it would kind of feel like what is this hotel? Like this, it feels like the hotel isn't really a part of the rest of the world in a weird way. Whereas now in Commando, this feels like an inhabited hotel. This feels like a place where people are and they're doing things that don't have anything to do with this mission that this guy is on.
Thank God. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. It's kind of this cool jolt. They don't say anything about it, obviously, because these two guys want to kill each other, and that's the most important thing. But it was little stuff like that first of all made it feel very 80s, and second of all, yeah, just kind of fleshed out this world.
And I also loved the little moment where I think Bill Duke says something about like him being a green beret and then gonna kick Schwarzenegger's ass. And Schwarzenegger has a line, "I eat green berets for breakfast, and right now I'm very hungry," which I remember that line, and it's awesome, obviously. But what I didn't remember is that then, like, it's a few beats later that Radon Chong says, "I can't believe this macho bullshit." Like, yeah, she's watching this, which I loved. I mean, that's like, okay, they're again, like, yeah, they're commenting on the fact of what this actually is that we're watching here, you know. And for a second, she kind of gets to be the audience. Again, there's no way in hell she should be with him right now. That said, I liked that they did that, you know. And I think they took it a little too further then with like, oh, she said something about you guys eat too much red meat or something like that, which was like, okay, yeah. The one time was good. The second time maybe not as good. But it's sort of teeing you up then for this, you know, the amazing shopping spree, because like after they figure out where they need to go and like where Bill Duke's car was headed, which is, you know, something to do with this small airport, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, he's like, "Where are we going to go now?" And he's like, "We're going shopping." And he's not kidding. They go to the Army surplus store, and after he, you know, borrows a bulldozer to break down the barred windows, they just go in and start helping themselves with a shopping cart and get some scuba flippers and and everything.
I want to talk about that.
We should. Yeah. I think we should. Yeah. Go ahead.
First of all, so at the beginning of the movie, Major General Kirby flies a helicopter out to John Matrix's mountaintop home. Mount
Baldy. Yep.
And he walks up and he kind of calls to John, "John, you in there?" John, being a 500-pound, 9-foot-tall Austrian dude, somehow just sneaks up behind Major General Kirby and takes his gun.
He still got it, you know? He still got it.
What I'm thinking at this point in the movie, when Arnold gets a bulldozer and goes in through the front window of an army supply store, is there not a way you could have done this that would have alerted less attention? Because
are you saying he should just pry the door open, or even just check the lock?
It seems like you'd scale the thing, get on the roof, go down through a door. So I don't know. There seems to be no alarm in the place.
No.
So yeah, it was. They drove up and you kind of saw the front of the store, and then the next thing you know, you have this close up of him on this bulldozer. And it's like, and I was just thinking, oh, he's going to go in through like the side. But no, he's going in through the front, like driving across the road, going into the front of the store. You couldn't attract more attention by doing it that way. I thought it was a very odd choice. Did you see any airtight plan there?
No, I was going to say, isn't it comforting to know that a shop that has a rocket launcher in the back doesn't have an alarm system?
No
Although, maybe it did, because the police did show up. I noticed like throughout this
silent
sequence,
alarm, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I noticed throughout this whole sequence that like there's nobody out on the streets of LA at night where they're at. I'm just like, that seems slightly unrealistic to me. But, you know, yeah, it does sort of play into
But at least the cops show up later. Like that's actually kind of
the show up.
That takes the curse off of it a little bit.
It does, and I was a little surprised that we didn't get a shootout in the surplus store, because I was just like, oh man, like imagine all the crap that can explode in here, you know. But they don't. Yeah. Like they, you know, I think they somewhat surprise him, and they're like, don't even think about it. And they got guns pointed. They throw him into like a SWAT van, basically. And they drive off, and Radon Chong follows because she slipped away before the cops realized she was there as his shopping buddy. And I got to say, I liked seeing her try to shoot a rocket launcher. I mean, it feels, in hindsight, kind of so silly and predictable. It works in the moment, especially that she shoots it backwards at first. It's great, you know?
Exactly. That's what sells it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, like, it reminds me, and don't kill me, people, but like a little bit of like the female protagonists in the Indiana Jones movies, like the role that they sort of fulfill a little bit, but without like as heavy of a romance thing. But either way, like I actually wrote down, like when I was watching that scene, I was like, this movie again, like it's clearly meant to be more fun than Rambo, just comparing those two. And certainly Missing in Action. And it is. Right. Like it just definitely is, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it is weird though that Rambo, I think, made more money than like all of these other ones combined. But we'll get to that in a little bit, because we should probably talk about how after they're able to take off in a seaplane, because we have learned that Radon Chong, who is a flight attendant herself, she's not just a random person at the airport, is studying to get her pilot's license. Mm-hmm. They land, Craig, and Schwarzenegger gets into a little boat in a also little black bikini brief.
That's right.
He paddles to shore, and he gets out, and he then gets dressed in his military fatigues.
Right.
I would like to posit to you that it would have been possible for him to get dressed before he got in the boat. Now, you come at me with a counterpoint.
Well, I have never served in the military, Shawn.
Oh, yeah, okay. I know this about you. Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure when there is a military operation, any sort of offensive maneuver, that the soldiers do go in only in underwear.
Okay.
And I'm not really a student of history, but I'm almost positive the beaches of Normandy, they got to the beach and then they put their clothes on, sort of in an attempt to have a clean appearance going in. You know
because
what I mean?
Wet clothes slow you down? Is that maybe the thinking?
Yeah, or it might even be just sort of a centuries old tradition.
Could be. Goes back to the
maybe
Vikings.
Has been overturned since then.
Yeah.
Maybe it did.
Well, we spent 2 episodes talking about Dunkirk, and I don't remember the underwear thing coming up in that, but maybe that's just like a European versus an American thing.
Well, he may have just cut it out because everyone is already familiar with the idea.
Yeah, good point. But the beauty of that, other than the actual physical beauty of that, I can't imagine that Arnold didn't say, what if I just like go over in my underwear and I can show up my leg, blah, 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 blah.
I figure it had to be a beefcake moment, right?
Yeah, that's a beefcake moment for sure. But you get a great little sequence of him putting all that stuff on. You got your big serrated knife, which is, if the Uzi is the firearm of the 80s, I would say that's the cutlery of the 80s. He puts on the grease on the face, and he's ready to go commit mass murder.
Sure.
And boy, he does that for the next 20 minutes, right?
Yes, he does.
All right, come at me with your question.
Question: the grease camo that he puts on,
the jungle paint. Yeah,
I guess that was the one thing I've always thought it looked cool. Looks great on the poster, but every time I look at him, I'm like, you don't really blend in. I don't really feel like you're blending in any way.
No, he's not in a jungle in this instance.
Right. Well, it's just his skin and some black marks. I just kind of felt, and you notice later when his vest comes off how much those black marks sort of accentuate his musculature.
They really do.
I feel like you're not really hiding yourself. I think you're putting yourself out there a little more.
It could have just been a makeup kind of thing, It's
maybe it's just kind of how he gets pumped up.
Yeah, totally.
But he does. It's an all-out assault. There's no question about it. And you'll notice, eagle-eyed viewers will notice that when they blow up those barracks or the buildings.
Yep.
After he sets some bombs and he blows them up, because they explode several times, as you do. Another great
many times,
80s trope. Did you notice the very, very obvious mannequins dressed like soldiers all around the buildings?
Craig, I noticed that, and I noticed that they were perhaps attached to their stands, the wooden stands, a little too well, because they do not move at all. When they're basically getting blown up. So instead of seeing them go flying, which I have to imagine was the intention, They're
Well,
just,
sure.
They just get blown up and stay right where they are.
Yeah.
Made me laugh. Made me laugh because it wasn't just in one shot. There are multiple times where you see that and where it happens. And I don't know, you wonder if it's one of those things that, because there's no way they didn't see that in the editing and the shooting even. You run out of time, you run out of money, you can't reshoot that a little bit, or you blow something up. Obviously, you can't do it twice. Maybe that's really what it is.
Well, I'll put it out there though that there's that moment. There's the moment when he's hanging Sully over the cliff, where there's a pretty good shot of the wire that's holding his ankle.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And there's a bit where he's driving the bulldozer into the army surplus store, and there's a shot where it's just like, that's your stunt guy on a bulldozer. Like, that's not you at all. And it got me to just thinking about, is it just that, we keep evolving as movie audiences? And back then, it's not even that you wouldn't have noticed it, but that you would have just accepted it. It would have been automatically forgiven. It's not completely ridiculous.
Well,
like, it doesn't take you out of the moment enough. Like, you just kind of let it go. You're just kind of like, yes, well, that's okay. Whereas now it has to be totally real because it's CGI.
Yeah.
Like if you make a mistake, then you made the mistake, literally.
Yeah, you have to live with it. You can't just repaint it.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely that. I mean, as far as like the audience is dealing with it, I don't know. I think, that stormtrooper that bumps his head on the door in this first Star Wars movie, I'm sure there were, leagues of Star Wars nerds that knew about that and could talk about it to one another. But, maybe it's because you didn't have the internet to sort of like go and post about this and put a clip of it up immediately. That it doesn't, it's just not something you think about when you think about Commando, maybe. But it's definitely something I'm going to think about from now on because it made me laugh. I also think there may have been a shot, a sort of longish shot when Schwarzenegger was doing his bikini boating, that it was either him or a double that actually had on white underwear or something. It was not in the black brief for just like a split second.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which that would be a major continuity flaw. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to look at that. But we should talk about now, because this is getting us into this last act here and this all-out assault upon the Dan Hedaya compound where Bennett and Alyssa Milano are. And this is when we get the moment that you held up fondly, which is the guy having his arm cut off. And
It's wonderful.
how did you feel about it watching it again for the first time in a little while? I thought it delivered. I thought that whole sequence when he's hiding out in the shed and comes out of it specifically, not maybe the entire third act here, but that sequence, like, yeah, get a pitchfork, get a hatchet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, throw the circular saw blades. Yes.
Yeah.
Did it tap into any sort of nostalgic joy there for you when you used to pretend to cut people's arms off?
I pretend.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, but I recalled that as a kid, like, I must have rewound and watched that over and over again. That little
I know,
sequence. Right? And it's not really a great sequence. And I really didn't buy throwing circular saw blades anymore. I just didn't work for me. I don't think that's how it worked. But
you get scalped. Yeah, I don't think it would work that way.
Is that the goriest thing that happened in these 4 movies? Like the goriest. How should I say? Like, not suggested, but something
like
you actually definitely see full on.
Possibly. I feel like Stallone had some good ones, but yeah, it feels like you get the entire like tree rings of this dude's arm, the stump, and there's that beat long enough where the guy kind of sees that it's coming, and then the arm gets chopped off, and then he's still looking at it and screams. So it's like held on to for just long enough to really make it kind of gory and gruesome. So I think I think we should give the trophy to that moment as far as the goriest, as far as I can remember.
Trophy given.
Either way, it definitely stands out. I think that's a good thing because there is so much killing in this last 15 minutes that this was the only part of the movie that I did get a little just less involved with.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much like I was sitting there thinking, it's like, good God, like if, my neighbors just happen to be like coming into my house right now, they would like wonder what the hell is going on. Cause it's just like a nonstop sound effects barrage of bullets.
It's just shooting, and it's just shooting pawns. Like it's just shooting and explosions. And it's like, man, that like, yeah, I didn't care about any of it. Like, I understand how you kind of need it because it would be ridiculous for him to show up and there's only like 5 guys. But at the same time, man.
But I wish they would have scaled it down,
Yeah.
Because it does become preposterous that it's one guy against, it's about 100 people at this damn place, right?
Right.
Whereas, like, I just wanted, like, okay, even if you have 100 people, have, Dan Hedaya, Bennett, and Milano take off in a car or a boat or something. So you can at least, like, pull them away
Get away from the army.
Yeah. Because he's just blowing these people away, and, like, none of them are, like, even, they're all firing at him. And I don't know. I guess they just can't aim very well because nobody is making contact. But it's
because the first time he actually gets shot at all is later when Bennett shoots at him from like across the room.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, every machine gun on the island couldn't touch him.
Yeah.
Just like, all right. And but again, no stakes really.
Yeah, exactly. And it's too bad too because again, I like the little moment where the arm gets cut off. I like how they handle the death of Hedaya. I like then that soon after this we get this sort of like parallel action happening where Alyssa Milano has like snuck downstairs into the boiler room area and is trying to like escape from Bennett, and he's following her, and then it's like only a matter of time before Schwarzenegger makes his way in there, and like all that stuff I think is edited well and like builds well, and then you get your final battle between Bennett and Schwarzenegger, and we should have said earlier Bennett's kind of wearing like a chainmail looking shirt where it's like I don't know if it is chainmail, and part of it looks like it's knitted or something. It's ridiculous. Like I don't know what it is, but he looks like a crazy person. He talks like a crazy person. He acts like a crazy person. So maybe it's like a fitting wardrobe. But here is, I don't know. How did you feel about that fight? Because there were, like we talked about earlier, it's like, okay, like Bennett has a gun. He has the opportunity to kill Schwarzenegger. He doesn't. And, it's one of those things that I feel like we talked about in The Perfect Host, where David Hyde Pierce talks that other guy into not leaving, by trying to get under his skin a little bit. And for whatever reason, it's effective because it's a movie, and that's the only reason it's effective. But there were still parts of that fight that I really liked. I don't know, did that feel like a satisfying end, or was it just too hard to believe? Or how did you feel about watching that as the climax of this movie?
I don't know. The thing for me is, ever since I watched it the first time, I've always thought, even though Bennett's a big guy, he doesn't stand a chance against Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
Like, there's that bit where he's talking to Dan Hedaya, and he's like, I'm the only one between you and him. And I just thought, like, if I was Dan, I'd be like, I wish I had like 10 of you then. Because like you seem kind of flabby.
Yeah, you're not in
compared to that
shape.
cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely big, and just the outward appearance of muscles doesn't actually mean much, but I kind of wish, of all the sort of little flourishes and character work they did, I kind of wish like he was known for something. Or, he's just known for being crazier, and that's why he's so dangerous or something. Because he doesn't, he looks like he could have like then stepped into the role of like a 50-year-old dad and on this sitcom.
And I feel like that's maybe what they were trying to do. It's like, oh yeah, he's the crazy one. But they didn't, it's not established. It doesn't, or it's not done to the fact. Like we'll talk about when we talk about Invasion USA, like the bad dude in that movie. Like that dude's crazy. And they do a good job of earning that. Yeah, not so much here. You get some great, I like the fist fights, when they get down to that. Yeah. I like it. But there's no reason he should have put his gun. There's just no reason. Like, I don't need a gun. I don't need the girl. I don't need a knife. It's like all this nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's like,
No.
he's saying that. He's like, I don't need them. I'm like, no, but you do have these things and they will be effective. Just shoot them.
Right.
But you get another thing where, I don't know if throwing that pipe at a guy would impale him like that, because it's not it's a hollow pipe, and it's not, it doesn't come to a point.
No.
You get the awesome line.
I mean, I assume that what we're saying there is, or what the filmmakers are saying, is that Arnold Schwarzenegger is just that strong.
Yeah.
And that's why they had a tree on his shoulder at the beginning.
Yep.
And all that stuff. Like, he's just so strong that he could throw a snowball at you and just take your head off.
Yeah. Which he did in Jingle All the Way. No. But, it's a cool effect. There's pipes thrown at the guy, impales him against like a boiler, and steam's blowing out through the pipe as he's dying. Naturally, Schwarzenegger says, let off some steam, Bennett.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. I loved it. And then I do want to comment about the ending, because it made me think about, when we talked a little bit last time, they had plans to make a sequel to this movie. And in fact, we know that Die Hard was originally intended to possibly be a sequel to this movie. And I thought that was interesting, because the movie literally ends with Schwarzenegger talking to Major General Kirby, saying, this is the last time, and walking away. Kirby says, until the next time. And the last thing Schwarzenegger says is no chance. And I do feel like, if they are going to use this ending, if he had popped up 2 years later or whatever in a sequel, I'd be like, but he said no, like, what are you going to do to change that?
Right.
What happened? And it's just like, you got to invent something. And it's like, I don't know. I like it. I like it that he's stuck to this, and we didn't get a sequel. And hopefully they will not do a sequel before he dies. But it wouldn't surprise me if they did. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I liked it as an ending. I thought, like, that's the appropriate response. If the whole point of this movie is for you to get your daughter back, who you've told you would not leave, that's what you got to say at the end. Yeah.
I like that ending. I like the lightweight relationshipiness of it at the end.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, oh yeah, of course you guys are, you're going to be in love for the rest of your lives. But it was certainly further down the road than what happened in Rambo.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just kind of all you needed. Okay, they all seem happy. Let's see what happens with this mix of people. I like the fact that Alyssa Milano escapes out of the room. She's not just this defenseless kid, which they kind of foreshadow at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, also I'm glad that Die Hard was not a sequel to this, because going into Die Hard, you would have immediately already thought, oh, so this stuff just happens to this guy all the time.
Yeah.
Instead of like thinking that during Die Hard 2. Yeah.
And Die Hard 3.
I'm glad. And yeah, and all the other Die Hards.
Well,
but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I forgot to mention that Alyssa Milano did have a line kind of like in the middle of this movie that I really liked, when Dan Hedaya says something about like, won't it be nice to be back with your daddy? And she says, not nearly as nice as watching him smash your face in. And it's like, damn, like I didn't expect that out of her. And it's a good line reading, I thought. I was like, well, I like this kid even more now, Yeah. So, yeah. I think the takeaway for me on this one is that it definitely holds up for the most part. It's ridiculous, but it's slightly aware of how ridiculous this is. And Schwarzenegger's great. I mean, we didn't really talk about it that much, but he drives this. He really does drive this thing, as far as I'm concerned. And like, it's a like charismatic, ultra charismatic performance, I think, without like, it's just before it did sort of turn into him doing this thing as parody of sorts, Yeah. So yeah, I think if you're not well versed in why Schwarzenegger is the guy that he is, I don't know. I might even start with this movie, and then do the Terminators.
That's not a bad idea,
because you'll have a damn fun time. Speaking of fun, should we invade America?
Somebody has to.
Movie number 2 of the 3 that he's in. He might be in more. We talked about this last time. I don't even know. It could be like 27 of these things that he's in. But I said I think this is one of the quintessential ones that made me a believer in the legend of him. And I'll quickly give the synopsis here. And that's because it's super short and uses some of the same language as Commando. A one-man army comes to the rescue of the United States when a spy attempts an invasion. There's more to it than that, but there's also not a whole lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was going to say,
I don't know. A one-man army? Jeez, I don't know.
Well, we have Commando, which is pretty well plot-driven, has its ticking clock.
Yep.
You know, most of the things that happen it make sense. The decisions make sense. The things that lead to the next things make sense. Whereas I feel like Invasion USA, I don't want to get grandiose, but let's say it's kind of like jazz.
Yeah, man.
So there's not really a reason.
That's right, Daddy-O.
Outside of, you have a bad guy named Rostov, I believe.
Yeah.
And Rostov is going to lead the invasion of the United States by the Russians, as I understand. And unless I missed a large chunk of the movie, Shawn, that seems to be the whole plan.
Craig, are they Russians? Did I miss that? I was going to ask you where I don't even know. Like, I couldn't place Rostov, like who he was, like where he's from or what the allegiance was. Partly
Right.
because in the first scene with him, he's speaking Spanish, you know?
Yes.
But I will.
Boy, I mean, that's a fair question, Shawn. I don't know exactly, except that I was assuming they were Russians because it was 1985 and his name was Rostov. But boy, I could certainly be wrong. It is revealed the armed personnel were communist Latin American guerrillas.
Okay, because see, I was going to say Cuba.
They're coming from Latin America.
Yeah, Cuba weighs on this a little bit, at least in the opening. But this is all kind of beside the point, you know, because, yeah,
What point, really?
It doesn't really matter. But maybe it's a good place to start. I think he's my favorite villain of the 4 movies in this little pairing here that we did today, or that we've done between these 2 episodes. And
I could get behind that.
I think he's ultimately more ruthless than, what was his name, Colonel Yin in Missing in Action. I mean, in the opening of he definitely has as much screen time as any villain in these 4 movies, for sure. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, you're opening on a boat full of, like, Cuban refugees, and the motor has died, and they're just stuck out there, and there's a kid, and it's hot, and here comes what they think is the Coast Guard, the U.S. Navy, or somebody, some small boat, with American flag, soldiers on it, the captain who's smiling in white there, Richard Lynch, who looks just a little bit off, right? Mm-hmm. From the word go. And he tells everybody, you know, in Spanish, "Welcome to America." And they cheer. And then he blows them the fuck away. And I could not keep up with the body count because, I mean, I don't know how many people were on that boat.
Oh, yeah.
They all died.
Nope.
And
yeah. There's enough that you couldn't see them all in one shot.
Couldn't see them all in one shot. And then quickly, you get the sort of smash cut to the title card. And I feel like this isn't even a question. That's the worst font in any of these 4 movies. And could be the worst font we'll see in 1985. We'll have to keep tally of that, but it's terrible. It's so bad. It's not even the one that's on the poster. It was like some weird.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like early Nintendo game kind of bad. But man, within seconds after that, you're cutting to Chuck Norris on like one of those like fan-driven hovercraft kind of things in the Everglades. And I was like, okay, here, this is gonna be fun. Like I know, I mean, like I perked up. I did like immediately when you see him on this stupid thing, because he's like sitting in a chair driving this. I don't remember if his shirt was open at this point or not, but it might as well be because it's going to be throughout the rest of the freaking movie. He's got jeans on. He's got that mullet rocking. And this movie, man, and like we talked about this a little bit with Missing in Action, that he's not the greatest at delivering a range of emotions, if we're being diplomatic here. Maybe not the best at reading lines. But in this movie, I mean, does his mouth even, like, did the corners of his mouth ever even like rise up or down to display emotion? I mean, he's so stoic.
No.
There's just nothing. It's just one line. That's his face the entire movie. And
that's definitely his resting face. The other thing that occurred to me while watching this is that I feel like he's like a chromosome away from being a puppy.
Yeah.
And
that's
like,
a good. Yeah,
I could never get past it. He doesn't really look tough, but at the same time, he looks like he's very serious.
Yeah.
And then when you have him, kick everybody's ass, then it just seems like, yeah, okay, like this is a tough guy.
Yeah.
But if you just look at him, he's got the fluffy hair and that kindly beard, and like I just keep, every time I look at him, I feel like I'm looking at a beagle or something.
Yeah.
So
that would be a great name for a beagle. Man, like everybody in this movie, aside from Chuck Norris, is a little bit of an asshole. Like, did you notice that? Like, in some ways, I'm like, man, maybe America does need to be invaded here as a wake-up call, because people seem miserable. They're pissed off. And just the first example I'll give, because like this character is like, I don't know, she's a throwaway, but what's her name? Melissa Prophet plays this reporter character named McGuire. And we first meet her, and she's kind of been detained by the cops because she got onto this refugee boat before the detective got there, right? And she is so pissed off at them for like doing this, I guess. I don't know, but I'm like, you just saw a mass graveyard, basically. Like we said, like at least 25 dead bodies, including women and children. Maybe, like, just think about priorities in life. Is it really worth the energy to be that pissed off at them for just wanting to hang on to you for like 5 minutes before you leave? And like, that comes up over and over. She's like that throughout the entire movie to everybody. Yeah. And, a lot of people are too. And just the last thing here, I do think, and we can get to this a little bit more, but, if you didn't listen to that last episode, we talked a little bit about the editor said that they took a lot of story out. They took a lot of, like, I guess, flesh off of some of these minor characters here. And that rang true to me watching this, Yeah. That said, I enjoyed it. What about you?
I mean, same thing. I enjoyed it. And probably, again, because it was cut down to the bone, so the only thing left were basically action. Speaking about stakes and everything, first of all, Chuck Norris is not going to lose.
Nope.
But at the same time, all I can think is, so whoever these people are, their plan is to invade the United States.
Mm-hmm.
In real life, back then as well as now, if a tiny force from Cuba on 10 boats landed on a beach in, where are they? Where are they? They must be in Florida.
Yeah.
They're in Florida. Of course they're in Florida.
Yeah.
Land on a beach in Florida. Even if they wiped out a couple towns, Army's going to come in and completely destroy them.
Yes.
Like, there's not even a question that that's going to happen.
Right.
Like, and in this movie, it's never put forth that, like, they have some ace in the hole. Like, if they do this, then no one's going to believe that there's really an invasion or something like that.
Yeah.
That there has to be this one guy who knows to take care of the situation. No, it's just so essentially it doesn't make any sense, which is a part of what does make it fun.
Yes.
Because it's just completely nonsensical. And for a good chunk of the movie, all Chuck does is just show up in a place where these guys are going to cause some mayhem. And then he de-mayhems the situation and turns the mayhem back on these guys. And that's it. Like, that's all that happens. you don't know, you can't really tell when the siege is going to be over.
Yep.
I still don't really understand how the ending worked.
Other than the fact that it was incredible.
I don't understand how any of it worked, but I still watched all of it. Like I didn't get bored.
No, you're not gonna get bored.
Yeah, and it's 107 minutes long. It's not even like 90 minutes or 85 minutes. Like it's, you know what I mean?
For sure. I do think in some ways, like even calling it Invasion USA or whatever the hell Rostov was trying to pull off, like starting a war, because there is some discussion, and it's hilarious, in fact, that they're at like some beach food stand and there's 30 people there wearing beach attire, and then there's Rostov and Nico in full suits, you know, as if, well, that they don't look like bad guys. No, they're just there for a day of hot dogs and wearing suits in 100-degree weather. But anyway,
just normal.
To me, it's just like, I don't understand any of the sort of like military aspirations of those guys whatsoever. Like that all just went in one ear and came out the other. I just watch this as like, this is like terrorism porn. Like for anybody like on either side, like if you're scared of terrorists and you want to see what it might be like, or if you just want to watch some dude kick the ass of terrorists, like this is it. Like this is like Team America without the team. It's just Chuck Norris, because it's like you said, like it's just a series of events where they're just going out and causing mayhem and killing people and blowing stuff up. And then, you know, Chuck Norris is there to stop them or not stop them in a couple cases. And that's all you need to know, because I think even complicating it more than that makes the whole thing really disappointing and fall apart from a plot standpoint, because Rostov doesn't even stick to his own mayhem aspirations because he's so freaking obsessed with killing Matt Hunter, the Chuck Norris character. And to the point where you got other people saying why, like he's not the point. And I felt the exact same thing. I don't know why he thinks that they have to kill this guy in order to do this thing, because they seem to be fairly successful before they go all in on trying to kill Chuck Norris, you know?
Well, and vice versa. At some point, I believe Chuck is the one saying, I've got to kill Rostov, and that'll put an end to this.
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
Why would that put an end to anything?
No.
Put an end to what? Yeah.
So none of that stuff makes that much sense. But I do think, again, at least Rostov is a reflection of evil, if we can borrow that title again. Because, you know, it's like, you want to make a villain. In the opening, he's calling for the death of all, and like causes the death of like all these refugees. The next time you see him, he's like delivering a briefcase to these guys, like in a seedy ass apartment building, and it is seedy. I mean, there's like prostitutes in the hallway. You know, there's that guy, Billy Drago, who that actor looks really familiar to me, just slimy and greasy. He's in a room, right? He's in a room, which I loved, that there's like 3 phones, like old school phones in this room. There's like a black, white, and a red one for some reason. But like you get the sense that whatever transaction that Rostov is hoping to make is not going to go down the way he intended, and that this Billy Drago character is probably going to do something to him. But there's also a woman in there who is testing out the cocaine that they got off of that refugee boat. And like she's snorting this thing when bam, bam, in split seconds, Rostov grabs her head, bangs it into the mirror. He turns and like shoots the Billy Drago guy in the dick. And then a couple more times, throws the woman out the window, and then just makes his exit. And I was like, oh my God. Like, you know, this movie by far, I think, had the most sort of like those like, oh, Jesus factors of like inventiveness for killing people, I guess. I mean, it all gets a bit silly when, you know, the other people show up on the shore. But I was like, yep, this guy's awful and he's evil. Like that's all I really need to know. He looks like he's, did you notice it looked like maybe he's like been burnt or something, like his skin around his mouth? And it was like subtle makeup though. Like I kind of actually liked it, you know.
I don't think it was makeup.
Okay, well, man, I was gonna say maybe it's not. I mean, maybe he just has some really, you know, scar tissue there.
Yeah.
But it adds to the layer of nastiness to this dude for sure. Like he looks like a badass, you know, and a weirdo.
He does. It definitely does. And I'll point out that that's not the only time he shoots someone in the dick in this movie.
No, there's multiple times.
That seems to be kind of a go-to move for this guy.
Well, it's effective, you know. It's you don't want to get shot there, and he does not have any qualms about hurting anybody in this thing.
That's true.
But again, like I think the first clue that this guy maybe has his priorities out of whack a little bit, even for just a bad guy, is that he has a nightmare about Chuck Norris. You remember that?
Yeah.
Like, and then he wakes up in like a dead sweat. It's like, you know, I was like, it made me laugh so hard. Like, I was like, okay, this is like how Chuck Norris facts got started right there. It's like, you know, if you dream about killing me, you know, I mean, it's just like, God, it's so ridiculous.
And a part of that is, yeah, like Chuck Norris is a walking puppy dog again. Yeah. And up until now, we've seen him in the Everglades, like wrestling gators, which I gotta say, I mean, it's kind of interesting, but at the same time, I was like, can we skip all this stuff? Like, I don't care. Like, none of this tells me that he's gonna be this guy who can outsmart this invasion. Like, I couldn't figure out why we're starting in the Everglades at all.
Yeah. Well, and
even,
of
obviously it's setting Florida.
It looks cool on that airboat, but even like comparing this to that super cheesy sequence with Schwarzenegger and Alyssa Milano, like you at least like get glean some information about who this guy is out of that, and like you know nothing about Chuck Norris in this. I mean, not a damn thing, you know, other than you know guys are saying as long as he's breathing, he's a threat. I did like the fact that he appeared to have a pet armadillo. I thought that was kind of cute.
It's a nice touch.
I was like, they better not kill it.
What happened to that armadillo? Where did it go?
I think it got
away. Ran away and that was it.
Yeah, it got away.
I mean, it got away, but I just wonder what that thing's story was. Anyway.
But also, like, to the point of what we're talking about here, I clocked it, and we were 27 minutes in, and I was not positive that Chuck Norris had said a single word in that movie. And he's got a couple one-liners in this thing. But I don't think he's got 20 lines of dialogue, do you? I mean, would that be...
I don't think so. If he did, they certainly didn't come in the last half an hour of the movie.
No. But again, the bulk of the movie is really just watching these bad guys and those scenes. And I was amazed by that because, like, I expected, well, there's got to be some sort of plot that involves, like, Chuck Norris. Like, you know, in a way, he's the antagonist in this thing. You know, it's that sort of, like, James Bond kind of thing. Yeah. But I do think there's some cool stuff there, especially early on with the bad guys. Like, I loved, you know, we do have this sort of nighttime scene when the guys show up in the boats. And, like, but the way they build that, I thought was cool. You know, you got this couple... sort of skinny, well, they weren't skinny dipping, but they're out in the ocean at night. They come back on the beach or making out on a blanket. They have a portable television out there on the beach.
Yep.
I think to watch the news. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what.
That's what I always watch the news when I'm making out.
Yes, on the beach, right?
It's perfect. That and Marvin Gaye, man.
It's the one place I don't want to go without a TV is the beach. And it didn't even make sense because I don't think the real sort of the terrorist attacks hadn't happened again, so it wasn't like they were like, we got to take a TV with us so that, you know, if something happens, you know, we're going to know about it. It's like nope, they're just out there watching TV in the middle of the night. But man, the Nico character just, you know, walks right up to him, grabs the guy by the head and shoots him, and then the girl, and that, you know, again, it's like it's wicked. I mean, like the way they did it, it's like. Yeah, serial killer stuff. I mean, I don't even think you don't see all of Nico until he just walks right up and does that. I mean, you know, if you've seen Jaws, there's no doubt that these two kids are going to die. I don't think, you know, I knew that was going to happen, but it's still like it worked on me the way it happened.
Very abrupt.
Yeah.
Especially for that era, I feel like it's super cold-blooded.
Oh, extremely cold-blooded. But then I do think, you know, they do it that way, but I think there's some different kind of stylistic flourishes when they blow up that neighborhood that we talked about in the last episode. These terrorists roll into this suburban neighborhood, and like, you get just enough of like this sort of establishing kind of thing where you're seeing the family put the star on the Christmas tree outside and turn the lights on, and you got the couple that's kind of like necking in the car, the teenagers. And, there's kids running around. It's nighttime and they're about to be called in for dinner, for bed. And then you sort of just slowly reveal that there's Rostov and Nico in the back of a truck with these other dudes. And they load up the bazooka or whatever and just start blowing these houses to bits. And it's brutal. And I like the way they did it because it wasn't abrupt in that one. Like they stay there. They're not in a hurry to get out of there. Even once they leave, like the camera lingers for a second and moves back, and you see the one little girl come out of the house who put the star on the tree. And, one of the people in the car that was making out, they run over and help her. And, you don't know any of these people. They're not in the movie again. It's just like that whole scene could just be taken out and put into a different movie or something. Or it could just work on its own. But I don't know. Like I noticed it, and I know, you're obviously the biggest Joseph Zito fan in the world because of which Friday the 13th was it? The final chapter?
Friday the 13th part 4, the final chapter.
There you go. I was like, well, I think this movie has a little bit of a fingerprint stylistically here and there. Story-wise, not at all.
No.
But, So, I don't know. I mean, I think that is the sort of real big thing that sets off this, like, continuous chain of events. It's 1985. Of course, they go to the shopping mall and start blowing things up there. They go to a church. They go to I don't know, was that just like a
supermarket?
They go to a supermarket. They go to a party. There's like some street festival or something. But again, okay, the grocery store, the supermarket. There's another example where at this point, everybody knows bad stuff is happening. Like this town is under attack, basically, or maybe all of the Eastern Seaboard. Right. The poor grocer is out there with a megaphone trying to tell people, like, I'm sorry, we don't have fresh meat and vegetables today because the highways are a wreck and trucks can't get to us. And people are livid, And I'm just like, you assholes. Like, he's saying, like, you're limited to 12 cans per person. I'm like, well, that should be enough to get you through a couple of days at least. Like, don't be mad because you can't get a fresh pork chop, for the love of God, you ungrateful jerks, Yeah,
it does seem like a really unusual response from a crowd. And we have another one at the end, which we'll get into later. But it feels like, why would a crowd be getting so angry?
I don't know.
I mean, all you're telling them is like, you don't make the stuff. You just, we don't have what you want. I didn't tell you that we had what you want, and then you came down here. We don't have what you want. So why would you be yelling? Why would there be an angry mob?
Yeah, and then this is also one of those scenes where the terrorists show up, of course, and then Norris shows up. I don't know how he knew to go there, or if he was just driving by. Guess who else is there? McGuire,
the reporter.
Always. And she gets pissed. But, I mean, she gets taken hostage for a second and has a gun held at her. And Chuck Norris kills the guy that's holding her hostage. And she's pissed at him. She's pissed at Chuck Norris. Like, never says anything about, like, thank you for saving my life. That was really generous of you. I do appreciate that. She's just so awful. I do remember the scene where Chuck Norris he's in his truck driving down one street at night, and it's almost like Taxi Driver. Like, he's looking out the window, and you get these little sort of like vignettes of there is a guy playing saxophone right out on the street. But there's like
that's right.
Prostitute. Every single person that he passes basically like looks at him like, what the hell are you doing? Like, how dare you drive down the street? Like, they're ready to kick his ass for just driving down the street. I mean, there's like a gang of white dudes that come up and like are punching and kicking the car. Just like, this is not a very flattering portrait of Florida, Everybody's really, really hostile towards him, and I don't know why. But it made me laugh. It did make me laugh, Greg.
There was a lot to be laughed about. There's no question about that.
Do you remember the sort of tail end of the mall sequence when I think Chuck Norris gets out of there and is driving after the terrorist or whatever, and you get the one shot of the little sort of like 3-wheeled mall security little cart kind of thing headed towards the same direction that the terrorists are in?
Yeah. Oh, that was great.
Quickly does
turns around.
Does a little U-turn, and oh man,
he's like,
it was so great. I loved all that stuff. I had a weird relationship with the level of violence in this movie, in that if you start a terrorist invasion by blowing up houses with a bazooka, right, or rocket launcher, or whatever it was, does it make sense to then use like time bombs and suitcase bombs that have to be run with wires like later on? Because they do that like 6 or 7 times, it felt like. They put a timed bomb on the side of a school bus. I'm like, you have bazookas, right? Just blow up the school bus.
Yeah. Like, do you want to kill those kids or not?
Yeah. I did love that Chuck Norris drives up beside the bus, pulls the bomb off, and doesn't even once look like at the clock, which has like less than 25 seconds on it, as he just drives straight for the guys and attaches it to their car and blows them up. Of course, he's not worried at all about this thing going off in his hand. But then, the guy is like setting up a suitcase bomb at that church and going to all this trouble to run wire, detonation wire. And they're literally like standing there with machine guns. There's like 5 or 6 of them. I don't know. I don't understand why you just go in the church and shoot those people, which I thought was what was going to happen. I was actually kind of like tense about that. Like, it just seemed like, oh God, this is going to be nasty. But
again, like that's another good example of kind of what's going on with the way that this movie is not really connected to other things. Because at least as I remember, the guys who are there planning the bomb, I don't think we've seen them before.
No.
I think Rostov is there for a second, but then they leave.
Yeah. And it's
maybe.
and it's one more thing where Chuck Norris shows up on the roof above them.
Right.
How the hell did he? I mean, either like
let's think about it again spatially.
Yeah.
They put a bomb on the front steps, then run a cord across the street, way across the street, and they're over there to blow it up. They don't see him take the bomb from in front of the church they just came from,
I forgot
and
to
then
think
go
about
all
that.
the way up on the roof, and then throw it down on them. So again, there can't be stakes in a movie like that.
Yeah, how would he have gotten
stakes.
that? There's no way he would have gotten that briefcase without them seeing that.
Yeah.
Or if you're going...
Whereas go ahead.
I'd say, or at least give me the shot where like the guys are arguing in the foreground and turn their backs for a second, and you see Chuck Norris sneak across with it in the background. But even then, there's a wire connected
Just
to
give him
that
a
suitcase.
second.
I guess he cut the... Well, I don't know if he cut the wire or not, but... I didn't even think about that, but that's amazing. But there's just no, either these guys are terrible about giving away where they're going and what they're going to do, or Chuck Norris is the ultimate tracker of all time, in which case I need to be told that in the beginning to buy any of that. Right. It's like you say, it's like a ghost, or it's like, we're talking about like with Rambo, it's like a horror movie. Like he is the Jason Voorhees, who's just, there at the right place at the right time. Yeah, he's Jason Voorhees of America. But again, it's all like, it's just so ridiculous that to me it's enjoyable. And like, I think it culminated for me, Craig, in the motel where you get Chuck Norris sitting on his bed. He's in like the full Canadian tuxedo, denim head to toe, shirts open. I don't know if he was still wearing those like weird holsters, which we should talk about in a second anyway, or not.
Yeah.
He's watching like a cheesy 50s sci-fi movie on TV and he almost smiles when the spaceship blows up something. It's just like, wasn't it a crazy, more innocent time back then when we were worried about aliens? But the best part of that whole thing, he's chewing gum. And then do you remember what he did with his gum, Craig?
He sticks it on the painting behind him.
Oh my God. I loved it.
Yeah.
I just fell out.
Among the other baffling things about that one scene, like, why is he in a hotel? Who tipped anyone off to him being in the hotel? Like, I didn't follow any of that.
Neither did I.
Then he's just sitting there, and I think it's like when he sort of catches wind that these guys are about to bust in. He's like, well, I better get ready. Takes the gum out and just sticks it directly on the painting behind him.
But get ready for what? Like, why? Yeah, he doesn't put up a fight.
Exactly. He's not going to do a single thing. I don't even know why he's there.
Yeah.
Because no one's attacking anyone in the hotel. Why would he be there?
At least I know there's some movie where they've had a guy chew on the plastic, the putty in the plastic explosive, and then stick it. I've seen that before. But this, nope, just he's smacking on some Big League Chew, and for want of nowhere else to put it, apparently, or the need to just keep it in his mouth, sticks it to a painting and vandalizes that hotel. Now, I'm of the opinion that the police catch up with him at this point solely for the fact that the movie wanted to have some way of brainlessly trapping Rostov and these guys, because they probably couldn't think of any other way to end this thing, because it makes no sense. And I'm bad about these things, but I saw it coming, right? Because the one saving grace of all this is that when Matt Hunter is being arrested and led into jail or court or somewhere, of course the local news is there, and he gives just an incredible speech to the camera, which is clearly intended for Rostov, but it's so obvious that I was just like, oh, okay, like this is a setup. Yeah, he's totally doing this to draw Rostov to him, and then they're going to pounce, And that's exactly kind of what happens, right?
Yeah.
But man, that
somehow
speech is good.
The entire army ends up, the entire invading force ends up, I don't know, descending on this building. So there's tons of soldiers outside, and then a precious few go inside. And correct me if I'm wrong, most of what they do at first is just walk in and shoot at every inanimate object anywhere within sight. They want like a bullet hole in every phone and chair, like anything that they see. They just want to put bullets in it.
Yep, that's how
that seems to be the main. That means like the first phase of the plan.
Yeah. It's actually called like Bullet Hole USA. That was the real intention, was just to leave bullet holes in a lot of places. Wasn't so much to take over. And even, I mean, the plan, I guess, is to just, all right, Hunter, you're free to go, even though we know you also just murdered a ton of people, although they're bad guys.
Sure.
You go do your thing. Yeah. And we'll do our thing. I mean, because it didn't seem like it was all coordinated. Like, all right, here's what you're gonna do.
There's not a lot of coordination.
No, you're gonna go out there, kill as many as you can, but just draw them into this one area. Like, nope, and there's none of that. It's just suddenly, he's out there on the street with a bazooka and 2 Uzis, and kind of like doing his thing.
Right.
Now, again, I've mentioned this before. The Uzis, 2 of them, one for each hand, he uses attached to a sort of holster device that rests on his shoulders. And they remain attached to this thing by like a strip of leather, it looks like, as he uses them. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out why you would do that, because it seems like it would limit your mobility and your aim.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody else. And
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard like that whole idea of shooting, like having a gun in each hand to shoot.
Yeah.
Just makes you the worst possible shot.
Yeah.
That it's just ridiculously hard. And then and again there was the sort of the thing. I'll see if I can find it. A write up on somebody's doing a write up on sort of the 80s action movie guns and how these became really popular.
Yeah.
Like these little Uzis.
Oh, yeah.
And how terrible they are as guns. Like they don't shoot straight. Like they're just awful. But they look cool. And exactly, yeah, he walks around and it's very sort of a memorable look.
Yeah, it is. It stuck with me.
It's kind of his gimmick. Like he needs gimmicks.
Yeah.
So, he's got it.
Because like I kind of would have bought it, right? If, let's say, he runs out of ammo and the easiest thing to do is just you drop your Uzis, you grab your knife, you grab your other guns that you've got on you on your legs, and you use those until you can reload. And your Uzis are right there just hanging down by your tits and,
Sure.
easy access later on. I don't remember seeing that. I don't think that happened.
No.
I think he just used... It's so bizarre.
He used them until they were tapped out.
Yep,
Yeah. And then he took them off.
Yeah, I think he took them right off. It's a sight to behold. That said, he's pretty good at killing people. It works out quite well to what he's trying to achieve. The military is able to corner the rest of the invading soldiers to the point that they surrender. Obviously, Rostov is going after Hunter himself, even though he does realize it's a trap at one point, because, a smart guy that he is and great at killing people, it did not occur to him before this moment, even though it occurred to everybody else watching the movie. But you get that final showdown between those two guys, and really all you need to know is that they have a bazooka standoff, and Norris wins in spectacular fashion. Now that, compared to the dummies in Commando that don't blow up when the house blows up, this, on the other hand, Rostov, his body parts get blown out of a window. And did you notice all the blood? I mean, good God, there's just gallons flying through the air.
The blood... Yeah.
In the explosion. And that fake head. Did you see the head kind of like?
Fake head. The fake head is what I really focused on.
Yeah, that was great. And then, you might have to correct my memory here. I think the movie just ends, right? I think that's it.
No, that's it. Yep. That's totally it. And again, I think it kind of takes us back to the fact that a lot of stuff was cut out.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's got to be a version somewhere where he ends up with the reporter. I don't understand why the reporter was ever in the movie.
There's no context.
Yeah, and you just get to this point, and he's like, "Man, here's a bazooka, boom," and then it's just freeze frame. Music comes up, and we got credits, and that's it.
I don't understand, like in this situation, I feel like maybe with some of the others too, like, don't you just learn anything from Star Wars? Just have the scene where the guy gets a medal, like he's being rewarded.
Yeah,
and, maybe
kind of put this whole thing to bed a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe he's the type of guy who doesn't want that. He's all he wants is to go back to his ramshackle house in the Everglades and his armadillo. Just something. There's nothing.
Well, but I think that's kind of where you're at, and I wonder again. I would love to see all the material they had, because I kind of feel like at that point when I'm looking at that freeze frame, and I was thinking kind of the same thing. Is like, I wonder what the scene is going to be after this. But it's by then I'd pretty much forgotten all about alligators and Everglades and stuff.
There's no
like, I don't think he really wanted to go back to any of that. It was like, like what? I don't know. Why did he do any of this? Like what did he kill him because they killed his buddy who ran the float boats thing? I don't know. I feel like they just got to that point and they're just like, you know what? No one in the audience needs to know any more than that. Nope. Like, he killed the guy and that's it.
You know what would have been an amazing ending is if he went back to that hotel, got his gum back off of the painting and put it back in his mouth and just walked off.
I would be a big fan of that movie. And I would love to know if there is a director's cut or something. Like I would totally watch this at least once just to see it all, just everything cut together, see what the story was, see if they kind of link any of those moments where he saves people. I gotta imagine it must be a very long movie with all that stuff cut in, because it's only like 13 minutes away from being 2 hours right now.
It didn't feel like 2 hours to me, or even. No. I mean, I think it moves like, you know. And again, there's just so much ridiculousness that it's kind of fun to watch. Oh man, and keeps from being boring. I did see though, at least one of the online stores that I looked at had a director's cut of Commando, which I can't remember. I think maybe we talked about that or maybe it got cut. Anyway, it's out there floating around. You can rent it. It looked like the running time was almost identical, maybe by a couple minutes, to the theatrical version. I watched the theatrical version because it's not 85. I want to see what it was like in 85. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe somebody can tell us more about the difference between the two. But let's. Did you look at the body count already? Because this is on IMDb.
I did not look at the body count.
Okay, well, do you want to take a guess at which of these two movies had the higher body count?
I mean,
after seeing, I can't remember what our predictions were.
Right. I was gonna say I don't think it's easy to really figure it out, but I would guess Invasion USA has the biggest body count.
You're right. Yeah, it's 129 according to IMDb. I believe it too. I did think though, when I was watching Commando, you know, when they get to that end, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna give the Norris movie a run for its money, because he is just mowing people down. A body count in that movie 109. So that's pretty impressive considering it's one man basically doing all of this, and you know, he's not taking on a group of terrorists that are invading the entire country. This also has a parenthetical that 102 of those 109 were killed by Schwarzenegger himself. So I don't know. I don't even remember other deaths that might have been caused by someone that wasn't him. So I'm a little confused by that. But what do you think? Yeah. Let's rank these four movies, these four sort of pinnacles of just manliness, murdering mayhem. Between Rambo, Missing in Action. I mean, you know, maybe Missing in Action is slightly different. Well, definitely different than the rest of these movies. But, you know, there's still obviously a lot of killing going on and payback. Let's just say what was the most enjoyable of these four movies for you?
Oh, Commando by a long shot.
I think I'm with you. I wish, again, that third act had just been a little bit tighter. It strays a little bit. But I think on the whole, I'd go Commando. And then what about second, though? What would you follow in order from there?
Second is tough, but I think I actually might. It would be between Invasion and Rambo.
Yeah.
And I mean, Rambo might edge it out.
I think I would go Invasion just because of the ruthlessness of the Rostov guy, and just the many times that I was surprised in the way in which people died. And I really think seeing that neighborhood burnt down and blown up, you know, it's awful and horrible, but it's kind of cool to watch. You know, and there's nothing like that in those other movies, you know.
Yeah. And there's all the ball shooting.
Yeah, there's so many ball shooting in that, you know. If Rambo had just aimed a little lower, a little more often, maybe. I think it would take that for me. But yeah, I think I would go that order as well. I think I would do Rambo next and then Missing in Action 2. Although I do think Missing in Action 2 is, in some ways, in some crazy way, the most nuanced of the stories of these four movies.
Yeah.
I mean, is it? Yeah. Does it maybe have the best script of all four of these, which is nuts to think about?
It very well may. I think it doesn't have the best performances, but I mean, story wise, it sort of took itself the most seriously, but took itself seriously in a way that's like, I don't know. Like this is at least somewhat plausible.
Mhm.
Like it's the most plausible of these four movies.
Yeah, which is
I think by a long shot.
I also think it's probably the smallest of the four, and it's definitely the smallest budget, and it feels like it to me. Like in a lot of ways, it feels like a movie that was not made in the same year as these other movies. Or even I would, if you told me which of these four movies came out in 85 and which one came out in 82, I would pick Invasion USA as the one that came out in 82, just as
Right.
not Invasion, I'm sorry, Missing in Action 2, as the one that came out
right.
before all those. What about best performance from the lead?
Oh,
And I'm not even going to quantify how you want to judge that, but just for you, who's the best performer here in these four things?
that's tough, but
So tough.
that's real tough. I mean, I feel like Stallone probably has the best performance.
Would it be easier to say favorite character of the four? Or no? Is it still kind of in the same?
No, well, I mean, the most fun character is definitely Arnold.
Yeah.
Is definitely John Matrix. Norris doesn't give you anything.
No, but I think
Like,
in some ways that character in Invasion USA is the most ridiculous of the four, right? Even though it's like he's such a blank wall, though, which is crazy to say he's
Exactly.
ridiculous and there's nothing about him. Like it's hollow as can be. But just the appearance and everything. I don't know.
so you would go with
Gosh,
Matt Hunter.
I don't know. As far as favorite character, I don't know. Oh, it's tough. I might. I did like Schwarzenegger a lot, and performance. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I might be with you as far as saying Stallone edges Schwarzenegger a little bit in the Rambo thing. Although I don't know. I don't know. They might be neck and neck there.
Oh, well, we brought this up earlier. How about best mullet?
Oh man, I think you got
Really between Norris and
Yeah.
Stallone, but yeah.
I mean, I guess from a technical standpoint, Stallone's is the best because it's the most alive, I guess. Whereas Norris is like you said, it's like a dog. It's like unmoving fur,
Right.
And it's so
Norris I feel like is much more of the era.
yeah. Yes, agreed.
Whereas like Stallone's could almost get by now if you were a certain kind of dude.
Yeah. Or even like a 70s kind of mullet,
Sure.
But yeah, I think I'd give Stallone the title there. And would you recommend all four movies?
Would I recommend all four?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think hell yeah.
I mean, yeah, I would recommend Invasion USA, possibly the tops, because I feel like that's the one that would be least seen.
Yeah.
I just figure most people probably already saw Commando. Like those would be the two like go to. Like if you watch these, you're definitely gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
Like Rambo and Missing in Action, there were definitely places where I was kind of like, I'm falling out of this a little bit. But I mean, these two kept me pinned to the back of my seat.
Man, it's a good time. Yeah.
How about you?
I'm exactly the same. I do think maybe lower your expectations on the Rambo front. I still feel that way. Like it was the disappointment, I guess, of the four to me. Maybe I was just, thinking, this is such a massive movie, and Stallone was such a massive personality at that point. I don't know. I just expected a little more from the story itself, and it let me down in that category. But still, like we talked about, it's just a blast to watch. And the others, for sure. I think, if you haven't seen the Chuck Norris things, you're in for a real treat in a lot of different ways, especially if you watch the two of them kind of in close succession, because they share some things and yet they're vastly different from a story standpoint and production standpoint and a lot of things there. So it's interesting that, we'll see what Code of Silence looks like. I haven't seen that movie. I don't know if you have, but it'll be fun to think about if at the end of all of this, Chuck Norris gave the three like most radically different or played like the most radically different characters in a weird way from as anybody in as any actor in 1985. I don't know if that'll bear out or not, but it's not something I expected. So, Craig, any last lingering thoughts? These were so much fun to get into. I think it was a good place to kind of go after watching Goonies to talk about. I do think this year in particular, when I think about it, it's action and it's those great sort of kids Amblin-esque movies. So we've checked those off, and we got a lot of fun places to go next. But man, these were fun.
They were. What are we doing next, Shawn?
Well, I think we're gonna tee you up for 2 horror movies, and they're gonna be fun ones too. I think we're gonna do Once Bitten and the classic Fright Night, man. So 2 fun movies that I haven't seen in forever, and I'm super excited to revisit them. I'm super excited to see exactly where they kind of draw that line between comedy and horror a little bit. And also, look at the rating and see like what we think that would look like today and how they would change those movies. And we know how they changed Fright Night, at least in one way, a couple years ago. We'll tee up for those. We'll go through trivia and all the basic details and everything you need to know next time. And then get ready. Go find those movies and watch them.
That's a great idea, Shawn. Any last words for the folks out there?
Don't put your gum, especially on a painting. I mean, that's somebody's artwork, even if it's a print, just a print. There's better places to put your gum, especially if you're an adult. You should know better, really.
You don't need to prove how tough you are by putting your gum.
Yeah, that does not
on the painting.
That does not suggest toughness to me. That suggests disgustingness.